Hey guys, Adam with Aeroworks Productions and HardcoreDrones.com, and today we've got an exciting review for you. It's the Yuneec H920 Tornado, and this is a sweet machine. Full carbon fiber, arms and body. Super sweet gimbal system. We're going to go into that in a minute. There's several different options there. Up to 40 to 45 minute flight time depending on your battery configuration. Steady grip included. Sweet radio system, lots of accessories, nice battery charger. Let's get started. We're going to go into all the cool features right away. Now starting off, this is the H920 hexacopter, again by Yuneec. We have ours configured right now with the new CGO4 Panasonic driven camera. Now this is basically a GH4 4K camera in a purpose-built for Yuneec housing. It's basically a GH4 camera in a specialty built camera for Yuneec. Now this is an option that allows people who maybe don't already have an SLR to get into a complete aerial package. Now let's talk about prices here. The Yuneec itself, the H920 retails for $34.99. That's for the copter itself. You then have to add a gimbal. Now if you already have a GH3 or a GH4, you can add the gimbal for $14.99, or if you don't have a camera, you can add the GH4 camera and gimbal for $26.99. There's one last camera option, and that is called the V18, specifically built for inspections and law enforcement. It has an 18 times Sony chip zoom camera built into it. Not really made for filmmaking, more for inspections, law enforcement, search and rescue. That camera alone retails for $39.99. and that's not yet been released. It should be out any time. But for those that are looking for doing aerial photography, videography, the CGO4 camera with the purpose-built gimbal, or the GB603, which is built for your GH4 or GH3 camera. Now, one benefit of the CGO4 camera that's really slick is you get a 3 times optical zoom included with the camera, with the stock lens. Now you can take this lens off and put another lens on there, but you'll actually be able to control zooming. So if you're doing inspections or something like that, and you want to zoom in on your target, you'll be able to use the zoom knob. There's also an on-screen display. We're going to show you that in a minute. Again, 4K recording. I believe in up to 150 megabits per second on the recording. The copter itself flies on 2 batteries. You actually get 2 4,000 mAh 6S batteries with the copter. It requires 2 to fly, but you actually have 3 slots, and we'll show you that in a second here. The battery bay will actually accept up to 3 batteries, and if you kind of go with the rule of thumb that each battery is 15 minutes, 15, 30, and so on, you can get potentially up to 45 minutes with this copter. Now again, payload, flight times, wind, flying style, all that's going to decrease that. But to know that you could push that 30-minute envelope with something this size, carrying this quality of a camera, is pretty nice. So let's go ahead and break down some of the accessories that you get in the kit. So first, both the H920 and the Steady Grip, along with the camera platform, whether you get the GB603 or the CGO4 camera, come with their own hard case for the gimbal. For the camera, you also get a full-on Steady Grip with that. So if you want to do ground recording, you simply take off 4 thumb screws, unplug a wire, connect it up to your handheld grip, and you now have a full-on ground solution. You can put your smart device on the top. You can control the pitch and roll of the camera. You can do different modes, follow me, and tracking, and all kinds of cool stuff with that. So you get that in a separate case. The copter is one part number. The camera gimbal system is a second part number. Now, along with the H920, I'll set that out of the way here, you're going to get the ST24. Now, this is a 24-channel radio with a built-in 7-inch Android tablet. You also have 5.8 video downlink and your 2.4 radio link. Landing gear retract, mode switches, tilt the gimbal, zoom the gimbal. I mean, it's got everything on it. It's even got a built-in flight simulator. Really slick radio, very compact. And although when we first got it, we thought, wow, that's a big radio, It actually has a really nice feel in the hand. It's very balanced. It's not too heavy. It's actually lighter than some of the other radios we've used. And all your functions are there. You also get a lens hood. Now they finally did something right with this one versus the Q500 in that they left the bottom open. So that allows you to get your fingers in there should you need to touch some of the on-screen menus. So you're going to get the lens hood. You're going to get a really cool neck strap, 4-point harness that actually connects up to 4 points on there if you're a neck strap guy. You're going to get a full-on 2-channel AC/DC dual battery charger, and this has got all the bells and whistles. This will charge the radio, this will charge the batteries, this will do lipos, lifeys, NiCads, it does everything. Discharge, charge, balance, the whole thing. If you're familiar with the digital on-screen display type chargers, you're gonna be able to run this one. You're gonna get a whole assortment of cables to charge your batteries, not only for plugging in the charger itself, balance leads. You're gonna get alligator clips should you need to charge out in the out at the field. You're going to get a couple extra leads to connect up and solder on what other kind of, maybe you have some additional batteries for something else, you can charge those up. Again, you've got the balance leads. We've got actually a couple additional cables. This is for charging up the battery for the Pro Action Grip, the balance lead and charger for that. And then we have the 2 battery leads. And then we have our standard micro USB connector for charging up the ST24. All that included. You're also going to get a balanced, a Lipo checker essentially. Checks all your batteries, gives you your low voltage, high voltage, overall voltage. You're going to get some additional screws, another cable, an Allen wrench for some of the smaller components. You're also going to get a screwdriver to put on your props. These are 17-inch carbon fiber props. Very high quality, very smooth, very nice finish on them. You get 6 props plus 2 additional props. And then a small quick start guide. The full manual is actually still being developed because we've got some new platforms that are coming out. So you do get an LED sequence cheat sheet and then a couple links to where to download the full manuals. So let's go into the full review on this. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've experienced as far as assembling the gimbal to the copter, some things you'll need to know about the radio, and charging the batteries and some other things. So we'll go ahead and get started and we'll get some close-up shots of these individual items. All right guys, now one of the things we really like about the H920 is the overall fit and finish. I mean, this thing is sleek looking. When you compare it to something like an S900 that's more open frame, similar in size, similar in prop quantity, but you've got that open frame on an S900. Everything's exposed, the flight controller, the GPS, the battery connections, everything's out in the open. If you notice this, everything is enclosed in a really cool, really sleek carbon fiber shell, and you still have the ability to that quickly fold your arms down and make this extremely portable. Can definitely fit in the back of a small car, your work van, etc. Again, now if you do need to put it into the case, as with most, you will need to remove those carbon fiber props. But as you can see, this breaks down into a very small, compact size, very easy to transport. Now the gimbal is attached to the bottom plate with four thumb screws, excuse me. And it's very easily removable, no tools required. There's some O-rings to keep it in place so that it doesn't come untightened. You take the 4 thumb screws out, you unplug one connector. You can then easily transfer that to the Pro Action Grip and do your handheld flight. Or just remove it, let's say you want to put a different camera platform on there, or you want to remove it for just some free flying. So very easy to break down. Again, has a very nice look to it. Now, Yuneec has stated that they actually designed these arms so that in the event of a hard landing or maybe you tipped over and broke an arm, that the arm will actually break past the breakdown point so that you won't actually damage the shell. We don't plan on testing that out, but if that's the case, good job on them. And I understand that the arms and motors are fairly inexpensive to replace if you do have to do that. Again, you can see here I am going through and in pretty quick fashion reassembling the arms. Doesn't take any tools, simply hand tighten them and you are back in business. One thing I will say that you may not have seen in the video is when you break down those arms, all the cabling has the abrasion coating on it so that you're not going to wear those cables out. They really did a good job thinking about the fit and finish and what components they used in the build. Now let's take a look at the battery compartment. First, let's take a look here. This is the GPS on top. A lot of people were wondering what that is. It's the GPS. There's no little pencil stick sticking up with wires wrapped around it. It's all sealed. Everything here essentially is weather resistant. I mean, you're not going to fly it out in the rain, but you know, if you did get out and there was a little moisture in the air, or it did start to sprinkle, you're probably going to be okay because this copter is basically sealed up. Now, you would have to take into consideration your gimbal. You wouldn't want to get that wet. But again, all the electronics are not exposed like they are on other copters. All right, let's spin this around. Now on the back here, and I'm just going to break these front props down just so I have a little more room to work. Like that. And like that. Now on the back here, we've got a battery door. Now this is magnetic, so this little flap here just flops down, and you can see it closes. In that back door here, you have slots for up to 3 batteries. Each battery is going to give you about 15 minutes of flight time. It does require 2 batteries to fly, but you can put a 3rd battery in there and add up to 10 or 15 minutes additional time. And the batteries, there's a little Velcro strap here just to kind of secure them. The batteries essentially slide in vertically, and each one has a channel. They slide in and they plug in straight up. There's an EC3 type connector on the bottom. You plug in each battery, you then secure the Velcro strap around, and you close the door up. And I'm not looking at that side there, but you close the door up, everything's sealed up. Very easy to get to, nothing slides out. It's a very secure design. Not like some of the other copters that require a lot of extra stuff to get your batteries in there. So again, very clean, very nice design. We'll go into the battery charging in a little bit. Let's go ahead and move on to the ST24 radio. All right, now we went ahead and powered up our ST24. Going to go ahead and let that boot up. While we're doing that, you'll notice there's a couple thumb pads here. There's also the photo button for taking stills and the video button for taking video. On the left side, top left, we have some gimbal switches. These are programmable depending on which gimbal you're using. In our case, the only one that we're actually using on the CGO4 is the gimbal yaw. If this switch is up, the gimbal stays straight forward the entire time. If we flip it down, we have the ability to actually pan the gimbal left to right to fine tune. We can just simply flip it back and the gimbal goes right back to center. All the dials on the right hand side we're not using at this point. This is our GPS switch, so if you want to fly without GPS, you simply flip that switch down and you're basically in a stabilize or attitude mode. With it all the way up, you're in GPS. This is our regular mode switch, so we have smart mode, angle mode, and return to home. Typical controls if you're familiar with the Q500 series. And then on the top we have our landing gear switch, and that will operate the landing gear. The nice safety thing that's built in is that the H920 will not retract the gear unless it's about 10 feet or higher off the ground. So if you accidentally hit this on the ground, you're not going to put the gear up and squash your camera. On the top of the radio, we actually have 2 more antennas. We have one for 5.8, and we have the other one, which is our 2.4 for control. Those are typical antennas. And then the last button we have here is our start and stop button. That's to arm the motors. You press it for more than 2 or 3 seconds, and the motors will actually queue up and start going. On the back of the radio, we do have a handle here, as well as kind of a stand if you lay it down. 2 built-in fans for the transmitters, and then we also have sliders. The left slider is for your gimbal tilt, and the right slider in the current firmware version actually zooms our camera. So that's kind of a cool feature. We can also zoom the camera from the on-screen display, which is on the screen here, and we'll show you that here in just a second. I'll go ahead and boot up the camera, or the copter, excuse me. And you can see now we have that familiar message that the RC has completed and we're waiting for Wi-Fi connection. That does take a few seconds. Now while we're waiting for that, one thing you can notice is there's all kinds of information around the screen. We have your typical information like how many sats we have, position, and what mode we're in. On the right side we have battery voltage, altitude, ground speed, distance, and so on. This little indicator indicates that we are using the radio in a hexacopter mode. We have our familiar mode select, channel settings, and system settings. This is for changing things, binding the radio, doing things like that. We also have a really cool built-in timer. So if you touch on that, you can set a timer for, let's say you want a timer for 6 minutes, and you want the timer to go up, or you want the timer to go down. Do you want it to ring, or do you want it to vibrate, or do you want it to do both? And then what triggers that timer to start? And right now the only thing we have is throttle, and what position of throttle will it take to trigger that. So when I apply throttle above 25%, the timer will start and it'll count down, and then it'll ring at the end. So really cool feature there for people who enjoy using timers when they're flying. So let's get back to our live view here. Again, on the inside perimeter of the main screen, you're going to start to see camera settings here. Now these are basically the same settings you'd see on like a GH4 or GH3. You're going to see things like what mode you're shooting in, white balance, ISO, and things like that. You're also going to see a settings button here, which once we have a connection to the camera, we will see a live view and we'll be able to actually connect and get into the menu items. Alright, now we're all connected up. We have a live image from our camera. We have our camera showing up. What I was talking about on the gimbal dial, if I take this and put it into yaw mode, I have the ability to actually pan the gimbal left and right. Okay, and at any time I can just simply flick this switch up and it goes right back to center. My slider on the left side will actually do tilt, up and down. And then you notice on the screen that we talked about the 3-time optical zoom. We're currently sitting at 14 millimeters, but if I hit the T button for telephoto, you can see that we're actually going in and we're doing an optical zoom now, up to 42 millimeters. So you can actually get a nice tight shot of something. Go ahead and take that, and if you touch the screen, you'll get a full-blown screen. If you double tap it again and it goes back. We'll go ahead and bring this back out to wide. And that's indicated by the orange numbers at the bottom. Now there's all kinds of different focus settings and things like that. If you do want to get a quick focus on something, you just touch the screen and it focuses on it. All of your other settings are down here. Now one thing that's going to be different for people that are used to the Q500 is if you're used to taking a picture and then jumping right over and taking a video, you can't do that on the 920. You'll notice we have a mode button here. If I touch that mode button, I actually get a dial just like on the top of my camera. So right now we're in P mode, which is like program mode or auto still pictures. If I want to do video, I've got to change the dial to one of the video modes before I can start shooting video. So that was something that took a second for us to get used to, because we started out shooting video, we went to take stills and it said it wouldn't take them, and it was just simply coming in here and turning the dial to one of the program modes. If you're not familiar with what all these icons and letters mean, just look at a GH4 manual and all this instruction will be right in there. Again, so our mode button is there, we can take that away, we can change things like the ISO, white balance, and so on. If we hit the little gear icon over here, we can actually go into the full menu of the camera, change things like video system, NTSC, type of video encoding, do we want to be an MOV, an MP4, and so on. Video quality, look at all the settings you got in here. 30 frames, 100 megabits per second, 4K, 62, I mean, you can, there's just, all of them are in here, everything you need.
We also have image size, so for still images, 16 megapixel, image format, fine. Tons of things in here that you can adjust. Again, it's all right here on the screen. And at any time you want to go to full screen, you just double tap the screen and you get a full screen shot and you get rid of all the menu items. You want it back, you double tap again, you get it right back. Now, if you're familiar with how some of the other copters worked, like the Q500, you can go into system settings. It does tell you you're going to disconnect, and you acknowledge that, and you can go in here to do binding and other things like that. That's more advanced. Hopefully you've got a copter and a camera bound up. We can also go to the home button. I want to show you that real quick. Takes just a second to jump between modes. We'll actually go back one here. This is what they call the home screen on the ST24. Now, this was a little confusing because if you've seen the cool ads with the overlay picture that looks like a heads-up display and then you got the scenery behind it, that's not exactly possible because there's actually three choices here. RC is if you're going to only fly the 920 without a gimbal. You'll get this cool looking screen because essentially you're not looking at anything. You just want to look at gauges. If you want to fly it with looking at the camera, you're going to go to FPV. FPV takes you to the screen that we were just looking at. You can see that we relinked up. You heard a beep there. We're in the purple angle mode right now. If I flip this up, we'd be in green mode. Down would be return to home and so on, just like on a Q500. And then the last mode is if we go to the pad, and that basically takes us to the Android side, and we have a full Android tablet here, in which case we can go into all the menus. There's your flight simulator, settings, and so on. Now you may get to a time when you have to update the firmware on the tablet, and that's all done through this Android-based screen here. So again, to take it back, go back to FPV, jumps right back, connects right up, and we have our video and all of our flight data here. So the next step, guys, is to take this thing out and start flying. But before we fly, we want to go ahead and go over the charger really quick just to familiarize yourself with the charger. Again, we added these labels on here. The radio is nice, sleek gray color. But with everything that's on there and a new platform, if you're not familiar with what everything does, make yourself some labels, put it on there. We have our tail number on here, some other things. Feel free to do that however you feel necessary for your copter. Alright guys, now if you're familiar with any popular digital type readout Lipo charger, you'll have no problem running this one. Comes out of the box already set up for the Lipo, for the 6S, which is what we're running here on the H920. A couple things you want to do. They give you these nice Lipo balance connectors. This helps you extend out the connector a little bit away from the charger. Allows you to plug your battery in so that it's not jammed up right against the charger. Bring it back here a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. One of the things I do when you have a larger battery like this, plug in the negative side and leave that positive side out so that when you plug in your battery, you're not going to get a big arc there from the voltage. So it's a little bit safer to do it that way. Once you have your battery plugged in, we'll just pan this down a little bit here. Once you have your battery plugged into both the balance connector and your EC3 connector, you can then go ahead and plug in the red connector and there's no spark or any jumping there. Now we are plugged into port A. There's an A and a B, and you'll notice that up on the charger here we actually have on the display both A and B as well. A is lit up. If A is the one that I want to control and I'm happy with the settings, I just simply push and hold the start button. It does a quick battery check, make sure the balance lead's connected up. It then says press enter again to confirm, and our battery is now charging. This charger has built-in fans and cooling, so it'll turn on and off as needed. It'll also display the current voltage. This battery is probably already charged up, the current time that we've been charging it, and then what amperage it's doing it. Because we're already filled up, it doesn't really need to provide much amperage. Now while that's going along, and again, you can do two batteries. So we could have one here and one in the B side. We can then also take our USB to OTG cable and plug that into the front here, and then take our ST24 radio and plug this in right in the bottom here. So anytime you come back from flying, you plug that in, and within a couple seconds you'll get a battery icon, and it shows the current level as it fills up. Once that display goes off, you just double tap the screen and the display comes back up, and it will indicate your current battery charge. So you can keep your radio charged up and charge 2 different batteries at the same time, and we just hear the fans kicking on here. So it's doing its job. Great charger, very high quality, very well made. We can also do some other things. So if we wanted to charge, let's say, our steady grip, or excuse me, our Pro Action grip. I call it a steady grip because I call all of them steady grips, but it's actually called the Pro Action steady grip. You would then use the JST connector, and again, same way, you'd plug this in, you'd plug in your balance lead. You would have to move this down to channel B, and then we would want to change this because the battery that comes with the Pro Action grip is not a Lipo. So you're going to want to change that to the proper battery type. So you're going to hit enter. You can actually move the battery type here. So battery program, enter. We can move through Lipo, all the different types here. If that's not the type we're trying to do, we can change that Li-Fi. So it's Li-Fi, LiIO battery or lithium ion battery, which that one is. We hit enter. And then we can pick our charge rate and the battery size, which is 4S. And then you want to verify that, plug in your battery, hit enter again, hit enter to confirm, and you're charging your battery for your Pro Action grip. So once that's done, it'll make a tone and it'll actually turn itself off. What we typically do when we're ready to finish, or we're done charging a battery, if it hasn't already finished itself, you go ahead and push the stop button. You hear the fans kick down. Again, remove that red lead and unplug your battery from the charger and from the balance lead, and your battery is now ready to go. All right, guys, now before we go out and fly the H920, I don't want to leave out the cases that you get with this system. Now, again, when you order your gimbal, whether you get the GB603 or the CGO4 camera, you're going to get that gimbal in a case like this, and it's going to come with the Pro Action grip. So you're going to get a full-on case just for your gimbal, and inside of that is going to be whatever gimbal you purchase. In our case, it was the CGO4, and you're going to get the new Pro Action grip. Now we'll let this turn on here. I just turned it on. We'll kind of give you a quick demo of how that works. It's basically got 2 modes. It's got one that keeps the camera forward the whole time, and another one that's kind of like a follow me mode, and I'll show you the difference between the two. You also download the CGO4 app, and via Wi-Fi you can see the live image of your camera. Let's take the lens cap off here. Always got to do that. Okay, so right now we're basically in stabilized mode. The camera always stays forward. You can see that it's taking out the yaw by throwing in a little dampening there. But again, it's basically going to go wherever I point the camera. That's what's going to stay steady. Now in the follow me mode, I believe they call it, you can see that no matter where I go, the camera stays pointed at you. So this would be handy if you're, let's say you're running down a trail and maybe you're having to go left or right, but you're trying to stay behind somebody. You also have the ability with the joysticks to actually pan left and right and up and down. And that's done by the pan stick right here. Now on the top, we'll go ahead and put that back to straight on mode. You also have your tilt wheel and your start and stop button there. Again, this is included when you buy the gimbal. You get the Pro Action grip, whether you get the GB603 or the CGO4 camera. So that's pretty cool. Runs on a small battery. You use your charger that comes with the 920 to charge it up. This is the case the 920 comes in. I mean, look at this thing. Looks like we're getting ready to go to a magic show or something. Very nice case. We'll go ahead and open the lid here. It's not a hinged lid. It basically has 2 buckles on each side. And once we unbuckle that, the lid comes off, and you'll have a very familiar inside foam packing here. If you're familiar with the Q500 series, we've got some accessories up here. You take that off. We've got our spare prop still in there.
and you can see that it's very nicely cut out for the H920. One thing we wish you could do, and again, we realize it's a size factor, but we really wish you could put the copter in here with the props on. You do have to remove the props and able to get it in here. But still, if you got to take this on a plane or something, you know that it's going to be safe inside of this large case. So let's go ahead and put this back on. Get this back in the right order here. And I want to show you one other thing, and that's the casters. Because you don't have to put the casters on. They're actually an accessory, but they're not one of these casters that's like the casters on your office chair where once you pop them on, they're like impossible to get off. These actually have a little quick release button here. So you just simply pinch those, you can take them off, and now you've got feet. So if you're throwing these on an airline or something, you don't have to worry about your casters breaking off. You just basically line up the grooves again, and you can pop those right back on. And they're back on, and you've got wheels. It's a really cool case, looks very professional. It's marked with the Tornado H920 on top. This is included with the H920. The Pro Action grip case comes with whatever particular gimbal you bought, whether you buy the CGO4 or the GB603. Those are included. You get the Pro Action grip, again, very nice, battery operated, carbon fiber arms, and gives you a full ground and air solution. So let's go outside and give this thing a maiden flight. Stand back, guys.